Today, we're going to change the stator on a 2005 V-Star 650. Alright, first thing you want to do is you see, zoom in there, you can see there's an arrow and this one's pointing down. So we want to turn that to off. Okay. We're going to take our pliers. I'm just going to slide the clamp back. And I'll remove this hose. I usually take a rag because you're going to get a little bit of fuel. Okay. All right. Now I'll put just I believe it's a 1/4 inch piece of tubing. Move it over to my fuel can. And now I turn it all the way to the reserve. That way it'll drain the tank as much as possible. So while we're waiting for the fuel tank to drain, I'm going to go ahead and drain the oil. Okay, next take a 14 millimeter and remove the nut that holds on the back seat. Okay, next you got to remove, this is a 10 millimeter. This is a Mustang seat, so it's a little bit tight to get a socket in there, so I just use a wrench. Okay, now on both sides, this right here, and this one is the 12 millimeter socket. And you have one on each side. These 3 screws here with 4 millimeter Allen. Okay, now we got to lift this up to disconnect the wiring and the speedometer cable. So it's pretty tight going up, so you have a little bit of slack here on your cable. So make sure you fish that through. Just pull up on it, then you can get your hand underneath it. Unscrew the speedometer cable, and then you have these 2 plug connectors. Just give them a squeeze, and that comes off. Sometimes you just got to get the angle just right. Okay, and then here's our wires for our stator. So now we can start taking the bike apart. Okay, the oil's done draining, so I went ahead and put the plug back in. Now we got to take the kickstand off. So there's 2 bolts here, one there, and one there. And there's a couple nuts behind that. So those are 14 millimeter. So you'll need a backer wrench for this. Next is 10 millimeter for the gear shifter. And you got to take this bolt all the way out, because on the shaft there's a notch. Now, I'll show you here in just a second. There's that notch that the bolt fits through. Okay, now to remove the rest of the floorboard, you take these 2 17 millimeter bolts out. If you have the crash guard or the front bar, you'll have a spacer on this one. Next thing is we're going to take this little compartment out. Take this out, which is a 10 millimeter. That will give us access to the cables for the stator, because they run along this main brace. And this is done with a 5 millimeter Allen. Now we're going to take these 2 out. Now I mentioned that I put the plug back in for the drain plug, but leave the pan underneath, because even though it's drained, you look at the sight glass, there's still oil because the bike is leaning a little bit. So when we take this cover off, you're going to have some oil come down here. Okay, we're going to take this center part out. We're going to take this bolt out, and up underneath, there's one back there. That is 10 millimeter. again, you'll use your 5 mil, and I'll put a page from the book that shows the different lengths, because there's different lengths bolts goes into the different holes. So you want to make sure you get that correct. Because I have messed that up. You want to be careful when you tighten these up, because these are steel bolts going into aluminum threads or stainless bolts, but you don't want to torque on it too awful bad. I'll have to look in the book to see what the torque setting is for this. All right, once we got all the bolts out, right here there's a little open area, okay? And what I'll do is I will take a small pry bar, okay? And lightly, and you see you can start to move it. Then I will get a screwdriver and kind of work my way around lightly to see if I can pull this whole thing apart. Okay, so I got that broke loose a little bit. Because you don't want to dent or mar or anything on this. Just very lightly. There you can see the oil coming out. That's why we keep that pan down there. And this here for the vent system's kind of a pain in the rear end, honestly. I've thought about just deleting it, being done with that. It seems like everything on this bike, you got to get it just to the right angle, and then it'll come out. And there we go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to scrape all this off. I will show you how I'm going to remove all of this stuff here. Okay, this little harness right here. Okay, just fish these down through, and let's unbolt that. So we're going to have 6 bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll pull them out. Again, our 5mm Allen wrench. And I take all this stuff out so I can get in there and clean everything out real good. Get all the oil out of it. And to be 100% honest, I got to put the phone on the charger because it's getting pretty low. So I give that a half hour or so to charge while I scrape this off. Okay, so get that out of there. Save this. That's what holds the wire up in there so that the rotor doesn't chew up the wire. So for this, it's not pressed in or anything. You just got to kind of wiggle it. There. And it comes off. And that's all there is to your stator. Now your stator's free. And we can start to scrape all this stuff off. On this starter gear, make sure that gear goes all the way back. See where it's at right there? You don't have very much room there from the edge of the starter. It needs to go back. There's another gear that drives this gear. Okay? So it takes a little bit of wiggling. There. And now you see it popped in there. Be careful, this will pop out. But just make sure that this gear is on there pretty good so that it's driving this gear. Okay? Okay, you'll have your five screws, which the 2 will go here, the 3 will go here, and I actually have one more for here for the holder. Okay, here is your stator. The wire coming out of the stator goes to the back. Here is where it's going to come down, so you'll want to line it up. And you'll see we have a hole right there. So set that in there. You can kind of rock that down there a little bit. And then get your 3 bolts started. When you tighten these, just tighten a little bit. You don't want to bind it up too much because we're just gradually just pushing it down. So you feel it tighten up. Get them all to where they've tightened up, and then just give them a good snug. Go tight and then tight. Okay, there's that. Okay, for this part, see it's raised, that's going to fit right in there. This is going to fit underneath. I'll put the one bolt in there. I honestly think this is the hardest part of this job is getting these screws started, because they're just so small. Okay, so you're going to want to make sure that this point will be facing inside. Okay, so the second one, we're going to put this underneath. Okay. And then just bend your tab over like that. Probably run this behind. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so this wire right here, we want to tuck that down in that little slot. Okay. It goes You don't want this popped up because the rotor will catch it and tear up your wires. Okay, and then hold it all down there. to make sure that's down there real good. Okay. So see how this is holding it. And then your pickup wire right there. Okay, lightly hold that. And then these little half moon grommets slide in there. This is kind of a pain. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to show real fast how this installed with these two bolts. Wrap my wire around here. And this one right here is, to me, I think that's like the most critical one, because the other stator that I took out before, not this one, the original one, the rotor had actually cut one of the wires. So make sure that's tucked in there. These rubber grommets, I really think they could have found a better way, but that's what they did, because that's why we're changing this one, is the grommets were leaking. So, okay, let's put her back together. Okay, got her all put back together again. I will put the bolt sizes that goes into which hole. I will put that at the end of this clip. I don't know, we'll have to see where I want to put it at. Really wasn't anything special about it. May have used like a rubber mallet to very lightly tap this thing into place. All right, now we're going to run the wire. We'll have to go into this clip and this clip here. One of the tricky parts getting the wires up through this hole. Try to get the camera set up. I use like a long pick. Let's see if we can. Okay, so you could use like a coat hanger or something like that. Okay. Bring it up through here. Not a lot of fun doing this one-handed. Okay, we got them ran up here. And now we can just take this, just tuck it in there. There you go. Give her a squeeze. Put this down here and bend it back, and that's it. I'll go ahead and I'll put the floorboard back on and the kickstand. Wait till tomorrow. Put oil in it. Take her for a test. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Leave a comment if you would, please. I'd appreciate that. And we will see you on the next one.